So guys, I went to AEW versus CMLL down in Mexico Arena, and this is actually my first time watching professional wrestling internationally. And it's also really crazy because I believe I paid around, $40 American for this, and I got like near ringside. And I want to talk about the experience that, first of all, when I went in there, like one thing that threw me off was that, the police will do pat downs. Like they'll feel your they'll feel like your chest, they'll feel like, your elbows, just really, really just big pat down. And the other thing too is that, if you are lost, what would happen is that you will have somebody in the arena actually escort you to your seat and they expect you to tip them. And, the lowest amount of money, the lowest bill that I had was like 100 pesos, so I didn't mind like giving that up. But yeah, you have to be a little careful. You can get a little taken advantage of. But overall, the show was outstanding. I think to me, out of AEW, Dynasty, and then out of Double or Nothing, like two shows that I went to, this is like my most favorite show that I went to. And it's also really disappointing because you see how much talent there is on the AEW roster and how the booking, the lack of storytelling really, really holds a lot of people back. So I want to go over the match card and talk about my feelings. The first match was Persephone versus Red Velvet. I felt this was a very poor choice of a first match because, first of all, you want to start with a banger. Why would you have Red Velvet? She's done nothing for AEW. And even when I watched this match, they had slow grappling in the beginning. Red Velvet did good head scissors spots. Persephone did some top rope missile drop kicks that looked awesome, and Persephone ends up winning the match. And I was actually really surprised because when I looked at this whole entire card, I will spoil it that all the CMLL people won except for the main event. So, that's not that good really when, because it kind of is like with TNA Wrestling with how they would have, other companies or New Japan or former WWE people bury their own talent really. So I kind of felt like it really threw me off guard, but I liked that a little bit because AEW has an issue with being predictable. But I just don't know why they did it like that, But then after that match, you had Lio Rush and Action Andretti versus Angelo Di Oro and Nibla Roja. I'm not saying their names correctly, but the thing about it is that they put their tag team titles on the line. The CMLL people put up their tag team titles, and Lio Rush, I was very surprised with how much heel heat he got. And Angel, he got so much babyface, he got so much babyface pops really, and I was really surprised with that. They did a lot of great Angel and Nibla, if I'm saying correctly, they did a lot of double team moves towards the end of it. And a lot of really great stuff, so I really appreciate that. I think towards the end, you saw Lio Rush begging for mercy and other things like that, and it kind of goes with what I said about him and Kyle Fletcher, that he gets a little hokey or a little campy or a little silly, and he needs to kind of stop that because if you're being a heel, if you kind of are doing that, you're just hamming it up really. So I didn't like that, but it really is a reminder to you, what would happen if Lio Rush and Action Andretti, and I predict this may happen, is if they join forces with Ricochet. I think they could be a really great team, and Lio Rush, through this showing, it does show that he has some, really strong, heel heat. So I kind of think to myself, what more can they be doing with Lio Rush? As far as it goes, it was a really great back and forth with them. It was a good match. My match of the night, as when I saw this, was Neon versus Hologram, and it was my match of the night until I saw the main event. But Neon and Hologram, they really just, the amount of energy, the amount of crowd just popping for them, the amount of the crowd getting excited was just transcendent. And it really, really says to me, it's sad what they're doing with Hologram. Like, he's not holding a ROH title. He should be like the TNT champion or the international champion. Imagine if he did Hologram versus Okada. And I think one bad thing about the booking of Hologram is that they're making him undefeated. So the problem is that they maybe say, okay, well, you can't have these matches because we want you to be undefeated, really. So I really think through this match, it shows how great Hologram's over. They do a lot of really great counters. They'll do a lot of like, death-defying moves, a lot of luchador moves. It really was crazy with what they did, really. And I actually was cheering for Neon part of it because of just what they were doing. This was a really great match. It went a long time. Like I said to myself, it felt like a Dave Meltzer match, and that just means a match that goes for a very long time where you see a lot of really cool counters, you see a lot of like recovery, almost like a video game type of match because, in the normal fight it wouldn't go this long, but it was ultimately a really great showing of both of them. It's a little sad that Hologram is not, Hologram has disappeared for a while on AEW television, but imagine what would happen if you gave him like an ROH title, or you say, hey, Bandito versus Hologram for the ROH championship, or you do something like say, hey, Hologram in a triple team, in a trios team with AR Fox and somebody else and Bandito. And what would happen if you did Hologram versus Okada for the international champion? Like, he could be a great TNT or international champion. So it is unfortunate when you see work like this, and then he's not booked that well. But overall, outstanding match. The next match was Atlantis Jr. versus Josh Alexander. I think this is kind of the weakest match on the card. There was this really cool spot where Atlantis Jr. was on the second rope, and then Josh Alexander does the he does like the ankle lock on him, and Josh Alexander did a good job with this. He did like a lot of good counters. He did a lot of good catching of Atlantis Jr. But he is like a grappler and a strongman type of wrestler. So he did incorporate that. He wasn't trying to turn into a luchador. So I like that. The ending was controversial. Like, I think a lot of people were booing Josh Alexander losing because it looked like he was in a submission hold, and then Atlantis Jr. was on top of him. So it looked like Atlantis Jr. like got the pinfall in a way that felt like kind of like a fluke. So that kind of took the heat out of the crowd because they're kind of like, I think a lot of people were for Josh Alexander. So I think with the end result, and it felt like kind of very anticlimactic, the ending, people just fell out of it. And then the next match was Rocky Romero, Kyle Fletcher, Hechicero, Takeshita versus Ultimo Grow, Avern, Grand Gro, and Euphoria. I do not like these multi-man matches. I've said this before, but the guy who was doing the, raising the roof or the Rikishi, like the Rikishi pop, that guy was over really, really big. And also, too, like, again, imagine if they had matches on American audiences. Imagine if you kind of knew who these four people were that were facing the Don Callis family. You would have had something really great. And then also, too, that Rocky Romero got, like, the pinfall. And I was a little surprised with this, like, because I was, like, saying the Don Callis family, once again, they're being like Team Rocket, where they lose way too much. I was very, very surprised that they lost in this one. And I kind of said, oh my God, this does feel like I'm watching TNA wrestling back in the day when they would have their own people lose to people from other companies a lot. But overall, the match quality was very, very strong. It went on for a long time. I really enjoyed it. It was very, very epic. And a lot of the moves that they did were really, really awesome. And I'm happy that Rocky Romero got the pinfall because he deserved it. Like, he's kind of like one of the weak links of the Don Callis family. So, the weak link should always be pinned. Like, same thing with Wheeler Yuta. Like, if you have someone like Claudio or Dean Ambrose get pinned, it makes it look bad. So that was a good choice. And then the main event was Mascarada versus El Bandito. So excellent match. This was outstanding. They went a long time, and this really shows that Bandito can be a main event in AEW. And as I said, it's really like one of these things where, like I said, if I was running AEW or if I was in charge of booking, it would be Bandito versus Hologram at AEW Supercard of Honor. And then I would do Bandito doing an open challenge at AEW All In. And I might even have, like, Kyle Fletcher or, somebody else have a great, 20, 30-minute match with him. And I think that that's what I would do because he really, really shows that he is a great wrestler. He can have great matches. He cares about the crowd. He does a lot of death-defying stuff. There was a lot of great counters. It went a long time. Dorado transformed from wrestling, like you say, oh, this is some CMLL guy, to a very charismatic wrestler, really. And they also understood that they're over in Mexico, and I think that was kind of like the jarring thing because this is the first time I watched the show in Mexico or in another country. So you're gonna see like the hometown heroes, really, really pop and stuff like that. And also, there was this really cool spot where Dorado climbs like the set and he jumps off on top of Bandito. Like, this is just really, like, they really, really gave a fuck, and this was really epic. It really showed to me that Bandito has a huge future in AEW if they booked him correctly. Like as I said, imagine if he drops the ROH title to like Kyle Fletcher or Max Caster or somebody else who can kind of be like a good like heel type of ROH champion, a good like type of final boss type of champion. And then you did something like moved Bandito to the International Championship or even like the TNT Championship. Or like I said, AR Fox, and Hologram become a trios team. Or even like Mascara Dorado and Bandito become like a tag team. But this really was a really great showcasing. It really shows that Bandito, if you put a belt on him, he's really going to give a fuck. This was a really great show. Another thing that's surprising that they don't have pyrotechnics. They have like these steam bursts in in Mexico Arena. So I do want to say it was a really excellent night. I really enjoyed it. It was transcendent, one of the best professional wrestling experiences of my entire life. And ultimately, I look forward to AEW tomorrow night in Mexico Arena when they do their Grand Slam show. So, excellent stuff. And it really shows that a lot of wrestlers on the AEW card, especially like Hologram and Bandito, can be bigger deals if you gave them like a booking that pushed them towards like some AEW titles or more feuds. They're definitely very they're very much diamonds in the rough, and hopefully Tony Khan realizes it.